bucket could potentially go into the fourth quarter with a lead. SGA defended closely by Westbrook. Tough, step back, gets up the shot, banks it in for the lead!
Welcome into the Thunder basketball universe presented by COOP Ale Works. What you just heard right there was the call from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's step-back three-pointer at the buzzer at the end of the third quarter to put the Thunder ahead against the Lakers in last night's monstrous comeback win. One of many, many highlight-worthy moments from that game. And we're going to talk about them all right here. Gallo, let's get right into it. Now, this was one of two back-to-back games for the Thunder, and what a way to bounce back.
Yeah, just incredible. That Shai shot, the Thunder never trailed again after that bucket. To come back from 26 down, tying the biggest comeback in OKC history, which actually just happened a couple seasons ago against Chicago. Incredible way to respond after a tough loss to Golden State where you got up, you kind of had one of the most veteran, impressive teams early in this season on the ropes in your own building, and you kind of let that one slip away thanks to some shot making by Steph Curry and just a little bit of a slowdown of your own offense. But then to be able to bounce back the very next night against Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, Dwight Howard, I mean, the list of future Hall of Famers goes on. And to be able to pull that off in that style was incredible.
What you're alluding to, since we last podcasted, the Thunder played a back-to-back, closing out their 3-game homestand, their first homestand of the regular season. And that loss to Golden State, what you're talking about, this team has been taking lessons through every single opportunity that they step out onto the floor. This is the youngest roster in the NBA, so every time they step out on the floor, it's a learning chance for them to take lessons and apply them to the next game. And it is so cool to see that happen in real time in a matter of 24 hours, just like we saw with LA.
That's right. And so, some of the things that this Thunder team is learning are tactical. Yep. And those are things that it's going to take some time. It's going to take drilling and repetition and all that kind of stuff. The thing that can probably be coached more quickly and can be turned around is just the idea of a 48-minute game, the idea of competitiveness for the entirety of a game. And so, that's something that they were able to carry forward from a loss against Golden State where they were feeling really good about where they were in the flow of that game and it slipped away, to realizing, hey, if that can happen to us, we can make that happen to somebody else too.
And then just the resilience, right? I mean, we talked about we're going to talk about, the resilience in that LA game last night, but the resilience kind of in a more macro sense, coming from a tough loss against Golden State, shaking that off, getting back to what Coach Dagnall talks about as a 0-0 mentality, being where your feet are and recognizing that you have another opportunity to throw a hard punch against another veteran squad like the Lakers. It says a lot about this young group, that they're willing to bounce back and they're going to fight no matter what.
We'll talk about some of the leaders on this team that allow that to be possible. There's a lot of belief in that room and a lot of guys rallying together. Mark Dagnall is obviously at the forefront of that, just sort of with those mantras, right? The 0-0 mentality, the next play, all of that stuff. But when you have a player of Gilgeous-Alexander's stature who's walking that walk, that helps big time.
It certainly does. So speaking of Shai, let's play a little game of You Can Shai That Again.
Let's go for it. All right, I'm up.
Yeah, you go first.
All right, the quote, stop by stop, bucket by bucket.
This was actually the title of your article.
It was, so I'm giving it away a little bit here. But it was so good, we had to use it.
Yeah, and I believe that was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
It was, the namesake of this game. He gave that quote to me during our walk-off interview that we had on Bally Sports Oklahoma, the very first walk-off of the year, first win of the year, and he rattled that off when I asked him about the comeback, about being able to chip away from 26 points down. He said, there's no 26-point shot. And so we had to do it stop by stop, bucket by bucket. And it really speaks to the resilience that we've just been discussing, which is you've got to sit down in a defensive stance and grind out 24 seconds of defense each trip down floor over and over and over again to see that 26 number dwindle and dwindle and dwindle. And the same thing on the other end. You've got to execute. You've got to be precise. You've got to be intentional about creating the type of downhill movement that you want. Possession after possession. You can't take any cheapies. And so that's what they did in that game.
And It would be so easy, especially for a young team like the Thunder, who is just like antsy and fired up and wants to get a win, wants to like beat this other team, is filled with competitiveness, to want to just try to hit home runs with every single swing. But the maturity, especially from Shea, to recognize that if we just, to take your term here, Gallo, if we just hit singles with each play, we line up enough of those, and next thing you know, we can shift the momentum if we just keep chipping away piece by piece.
There's a ton of focus that's going to be placed on the third quarter of the game against the Lakers, and as it should be. That was an incredible burst. We'll talk about that more later. But the example of this possession-by-possession mentality actually came in the last 4 or 5 minutes of the second quarter, when the Thunder chipped that 26-point lead down to 16. And that was during a stretch of the game where it seemed over. I mean, there was just no way. And it was almost a little sneaky. It was a 12-2 run to end the second quarter. And, you know, I'm sure most people in the building didn't think much of it, but I guarantee you that the Thunder, as they went back into the locker room with that type of good vibes and momentum, they certainly were thinking about how far they had already come to that point. And, hey, 16 points in an NBA game with 24 minutes to go, that's nothing.
Nothing. Great start, Gallo. I love that one. Really set the tone for this game here. All right. Mine is, it's a 48-minute game.
I think every single person said this last night after the win, but I'm going to go Mark Daigneault.
I mean, yeah, that was the point.
Yeah.
The question was who didn't say it.
Right.
And that's because this entire team, for such a young team, they do a really good job of recognizing the length of the game. And like we talked about, just step by step, one piece at a time, chipping away and recognizing that one quarter that was lopsided or even a half that didn't go your way doesn't have to define the rest of the game. There's still more opportunities to step out on the floor and make an impact, try to change the game, try to shift the momentum in your favor.
Right. Each guy that checked into the game, I mean, we saw players that we hadn't seen in the rotation in recent games. Ty Jerome comes in, hits a huge shot. Isaiah Roby comes in, plays great in that second unit center spot. Gabriel Deck got in, and he played some first half minutes just to shake it up, and he was in the mix. I mean, he came in at 100 miles an hour, and that's the role of these guys when they come into these games is you've got to be ready to play. And I love that Mark has been thrusting guys into positions that they've got to go out and make something happen, and that they could be called on at any moment.
Definitely. All right. Let's move into Name That Dude, because there were a lot of really interesting stats from this game. Gallo, I'll let you go first with yours.
Yeah, good luck mining the box score and figuring out, who to pick for this game if you're playing along at home. This is going to be a little bit of a tricky one. This is a combination of two players' stat lines.
Gonna have to do some math here.
It's going to be a little bit more difficult. 28 points on 11 for 13 shooting from the field.
28 points. Okay. All right. So I know Isaiah Roby had a really good shooting night off the bench. I'm gonna throw him in the mix here as one. He had 13? I think he had 13. So now we need somebody with math.
You're putting the puzzle together. I like it.
Okay. Lou Dort?
So close. Same hair.
Wait, Derek Favors?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I picked the two guys that played the majority of the minutes at the center spot. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl also got some minutes there. He was 0 for 0, so his shooting does not count towards this game. But the two of them, Isaiah Roby and Derek Favors, notched 28 points combined on 11 of 13 shooting. Those are not guys that are going to be creating shots on their own. And so the reason why I picked those two out and combined them together is if the Thunder's getting scoring from that spot, it means that the guard play and the movement, the rhythm, the screening, all of that is at a really high level. And as that game went on, that's exactly what we saw. We saw Josh Getty, SGA, Dort, Baisley, all of them getting downhill and being able to find guys rolling to the rim.
I want to talk about Isaiah here because obviously the Thunder has been really rotating that 5 spot. And so any given night, there could be a different guy in that position for the team. And Isaiah obviously came off the bench, but when he came in, he made his minutes count and he threw a punch and he made his presence known. And I think that speaks to everybody that's in that mix for the Thunder. Even Mike Muscala, who is the model of professionalism, the model of stay ready so you don't have to get ready type of guy, knowing that, your number could be called at any moment or it could not be called at all. But when it is and you have the opportunity, you got to make the most of it. And Isaiah Roby, I'm looking at the stat sheet right now, 4 for 5 when he stepped. He only missed one shot, and that includes going 1 for 1 from 3 and 4 for 4 from the free throw line. That is incredible minutes from him off the bench.
Big time blocked shot also. He brought it defensively. He was a part of the lineups that the Thunder ran out there in that third quarter that really flummoxed the Lakers to some degree in terms of being able to switch and be shifty. And Isaiah's speed was able to keep Anthony Davis in front of him to some degree, force him into becoming a jump shooter. At the end of the game, that's what Davis mostly was, besides that late tip-in, was taking those square-up jump shots. And look, it's Anthony Davis. You can only do so much, but turning him into a jump shooter is about the best that you can do. You'd much rather have him doing that than dunking on you. So, Isaiah was able to provide a little bit of resistance. He was able to keep his feet moving on defense, in addition to catching the ball and finishing on offense, which is when you got playmakers like Shea and Josh and Lou, like, you got to be able to complete those plays, and he did that.
Only adding to his experience as a third-year player now in this league. Really, technically, second-year player. By his own admission, last year was his rookie year. Right. I'm gonna keep throwing that out there just so people know that I'm not making stuff up here.
I want to jump in and add on Favors also, just because he was so reliable all night last night against the Lakers. And when it got down to crunch time, the crucial play of the game, and I know we'll talk about Josh Giddey a little bit more, but Mark Daigneault draws up the play, little horn set. I can't wait to get your opinion on this as a point guard.
Loved it.
Where Favors and Shea were at the elbow spots, and Josh and Darius Baisley were in the wings. Lou Dort with the ball at the top of the key. If I'm the Lakers defense, I'm kind of like, well, wait a second. How are they going to get the ball to Shea here? I'm not really sure. They're not going to have him roll to the rim, right? So that misdirection was wonderful. You get a little dribble handoff from Lou to Getty. Getty with the left hand able to get into the lane and fires off a little drop-off pass to Favors. Crucial bucket to put the Thunder up by 3 with about 30 seconds to go.
Excellent execution. And, it only makes sense that the veteran Derek Favors would roll out of that and put himself in a position to catch the ball, in a position to be able to lay that ball in. And the rookie to the vet, it was great to see. We'll talk about that a little bit more, and I think we'll get into it after my name that dude stat line.
All right.
I'm going to go ahead and
go for it.
All right. 17 points, 5 of 7 from the field, 4 of 6 from the three-point line, also 3 assists.
This has got to be Shea's third quarter.
I thought I would get you because it wasn't the full game.
Yeah.
Nothing gets past you, Gallo.
Hey, you got to wake up pretty early.
That's right. This was Shea's third quarter, and we talked about Shea and the monstrous play he had at the end of the third quarter, but he was doing this the entire frame. And really, at the beginning of the game, he was getting his teammates involved. He was getting his, passing the ball off and making sure that his other teammates had opportunities to also get into the offensive rhythm. But he found a way to flip that switch in that third quarter, and it paid off dividends to not only close in that gap, but give the Thunder a lead.
The reason why in the NBA you have to have superstar-type players, a guy like Shea who is emerging into his own as one of the premier players in the league, is because they hit shots that nobody else can hit, and that your team doesn't necessarily want to be taking. But in some of those situations in the third quarter, the Thunder was pressed up against the shot clock. Shea had to go make a play. And a guy of his caliber, if he sees 1 or 2 of those go down, when you got to make a play when your back's up against the wall, it's a freight train coming down a hill.
How many of those beautiful step-back threes did we see in that third quarter?
We had 3 of them, I believe. Well, one of them wasn't necessarily a step back.
It was
he started to step back, and then he leaned in and banked it in off the glass.
I'm still counting that as a step back just because the level of difficulty was very, very similar. But we're seeing Shea now really show a lot of comfort in those clutch time, gotta take over situations. And that step back three-pointer, I'm gonna throw a call back in here to the Charlotte game last season when we first saw that little step back.
First game winner.
And it was his first game winner. Since then, he talked about he has worked on that shot over the offseason, on defense. And I just have to imagine, I know me as a player personally, thinking about all of those little, type of moves that you would never just do in a normal setting. but you envision in your head the opportunity when the clock's winding down, 3, 2, 1, you let it go, and you just envision that moment when it might actually happen in a real game. And so for Shai to have multiple of those moments in one game, I can only imagine was super satisfying.
Yeah, like some guards, they have these get off me moves, which are like ball handling moves to get a defender off him and get around him. This is Shai's you better come guard me move.
Yes.
Because he can get that off at his size, 6'6", whenever he wants. And if he's going to knock him down like that, I mean, he shot 41% above the break on those threes last year. I mean, it's impossible to deal with. You've got to be up in his grill, and given how he puts the ball on the deck and the way he drives, it's a nightmare. I don't know how you guard it.
And here's where I want to take this a little step further, and where I want to circle back to what you were talking about. That was the third quarter for Shai. When the game was on the line and the Thunder needed a bucket to kind of seal the deal, who brought the ball across the floor?
It was Lou Dort.
It was Lou Dort.
Right.
And where was Shai? He was off the ball, kind of acting more as a decoy. And this is what makes Shai so unique, is that he knows that he can turn it on and he can take over a game, but he also knows his value of being a teammate on this team and allowing what's best for the group to happen on the floor. And if that means that he's off the ball and taking the attention to himself but away from his teammates, like he did in that play when it was Lou Dort to Josh Getty to Derek Favors for a bucket, that's what he's going to do.
How often were you setting up as the screener on late shot clock situations?
Not
there,
often.
Paris?
Not often.
Yeah, exactly. Give me the ball. Give me the ball. That's Paris. No, I'm just kidding. You hit it on the head. I mean, the selflessness there. It's not even a second thought. This is something that Shai talked about, of just like the competitiveness. They don't even want it to be. They want it to get to a point where that's not even praised or thought about. It's such second nature, and these are the types of moments that you're cementing that as your personality as a team. When you go out there and you know full well the opposing team is like expecting you to get the ball, and you're going to do something completely different and use that understanding as a decoy, and it was beautiful to see, perfectly executed. There was no hesitation. There was no second guessing out there on the floor.
It even had me and you. I mean, I know I was sitting there. I was like, okay, how are they going to get the ball to Shai?
Yeah.
That was what was going through my head. And you have to imagine a team like the Lakers, who's probably, obviously had scouted the Thunder, knew that when it came down to clutch time, they're probably going to go to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, had them in a little bit of a flummox as well.
Well, great recognition also by Mark Daigneault and the coaching staff to recognize personnel for the Lakers that was out there too, because no rim protection at that time. And so why not go to the biggest guy on the floor?
It made for a magnificent reaction from the Thunder faithful that whole night. Really, the crowd was standing from the start of the third quarter through the end of the game. It was just so great to see from everybody inside of Paycom Center, and what a fun environment and way to finish that game.
Yeah, the fans rewarded the players for their effort, and the players rewarded their fans for sticking with them through a rough first half. And it's a symbiotic relationship. They each give to the other, and it was just so awesome to see that all come to fruition after so long of not having fans in the building. That was a great Paycom Center night.
If we're going to talk about fans, let's also flash back a little bit to that Golden State game.
Yeah.
Because even though the Thunder fell short in that game, and they, they lost that lead early on, they fought till the last minute of that fourth quarter. And when they walked off the floor, they got a standing ovation from everybody inside of Paycom Center. Turn around the next night, Paycom Center once again up again on its feet, recognizing that this team is going to compete, they're going to fight, and this is going to be fun to watch, whatever unfolds here on the floor.
And those are the values that Mark Daigneault and Sam Presti have mentioned since, forever, since we've been here. But they've really re-emphasized it this year with the fans coming back into the building, which is if the Thunder plays to a standard, plays with work ethic, with selflessness, with togetherness, with clear signs of selflessness out there on the floor, the values that Oklahomans hold, that's a situation where the fans can relate to the players in a way that goes beyond just whether the box score says the right thing at the end of the day. That they're going to be tied to this team for some of those intrinsic values rather than the scoreboard.
Certainly a fun night for every single person in that building. We're not quite done talking about this game quite yet, but we'll be right back after this break.
COOP Ale Works is the proud sponsor of Thunder Basketball Universe. Brewers of the fan favorites F5 IPA and 99-calorie Ice Chest IPA. You'll find those and many more COOP beers at retailers across Oklahoma. Learn more at CoopAleWorks.com.
Like we mentioned off the top, there were a lot of noteworthy stats coming out of the Thunder's game against the Lakers. Gallo, let's talk about this next stat line because it was pretty standout and it was a pretty big factor in the game, and that was Josh Giddey's double-double.
Right. The 18 points, obviously, crucial to help move that scoreboard along, but just as much the 10 assists.
Yeah.
Especially that flurry in the second quarter. He had 3 assists in a row. An incredible one-handed backdoor bounce pass to Kenrich Williams, and then a pair of finds, including like a righty whip pass, like spinning around on his body to find Favors going down the lane. I mean, some great passes that we saw from him. The double-double was huge, and I love the floater also.
The floater has become quite the weapon for Josh, and already at 6'8", he already has a lot to his advantage just in terms of size and being able to get to the rim. But add a little floater coming off of that ball screen or attacking downhill just makes him so much more difficult to guard.
So unfair. You and I need a floater.
I need a floater. Yes, exactly. Not Josh Giddey. But I love what he said after the game. It was actually Coach Dagnall who said this, was they challenged him to get the ball moving and be that catalyst for ball movement in that second quarter. And he came out and did that. He had a flurry of 3 straight assists to get the ball movement going. And Gallo, you talked about this earlier in the podcast, was, it might not have seemed like it to the naked eye of just like the momentum shift that was happening in that second quarter. But that little flurry there was an indicator that things were starting to move in the Thunder's direction. And Josh Giddey got that started.
On that whip pass that Giddey threw to Favors, Mark was on the sideline, fast, encouraging Josh to get into the action very quickly to create that little bit of separation that they needed. I mean, those are the margins in this game, is can you get to a spot half a second quicker than you might have otherwise gotten there, and that's what creates an open bucket. And so just drilling that into these guys in the second quarter of this game when you're down by 20-some is great coaching and great. Again, back to this possession-by-possession mentality.
Yeah.
That possession mattered. And it mattered because of the one that you could stack on top of that one and the one you could stack on top of that one.
Josh revealed after the game that he pulled Kenrich aside in that timeout and was like, hey, look for me. I'm going to find you. Like, you just keep moving. I'm going to find you. Sure enough, he did. And all of his teammates kind of recognized this. We heard this from Ty Jerome as well. They know to sprint the floor and look for the ball when Josh has it because there's an opportunity, there's a chance that they might get the ball on any possession with the ball in his hands.
That pass to Kenrich backdoor, I mean, that cut by Kenrich is at the very outset of the offensive action. It's usually kind of just like a run through that you're just getting the wheel moving a little bit, not something where you're actually looking to find a guy. And so for Josh to recognize, hey, they're falling asleep a little bit on this initial action that we're going through. Let's hit them early. It's great recognition and great teamwork by the two of them.
And obviously, Josh brings a lot to the table for the Thunder, right? And we've seen it in his scoring, rebounding. He's really done well on the defensive end as well. We're starting to see him kind of blossom in that area.
Even with teams trying to pick on him.
Exactly. But the one thing he's been known for, even before stepping foot into the NBA, was his passing.
Yeah.
He was touted as the best passer in this past year's NBA draft. And so this is where he really hangs his hat, and this is where he really prides himself.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see him continue to kind of go through these rookie things.
Yeah.
Our team's going to adjust to the way that he passes, the way that he finds guys. Are they going to recognize that he does things with his right hand more often than his left hand, or vice versa? Some of those challenges that are going to come his way, it's going to be awesome to see how he deals with them over the course of time. And again, with rookies, especially a guy like him, evaluate week to week or month to month as opposed to game to game.
Great point. And Josh Giddey was not the only person to get going offensively. In fact, there were 6 players on the Thunder roster who scored not just in double digits, but scored 13 points or more. All 5 Thunder starters scored over 15 points.
That's right. Lou Dort with what I thought was probably the second or third biggest play of the game, that lefty inside-out dribble to just blow by Carmelo Anthony for a two-handed dunk in the middle of the lane. That, I talked to you about this during the game, but like that is player development out there in the wild, out in the real world. Lou Dort did not step into the NBA with that move in his arsenal, and to utilize that in crunch time of a big-time game against some of the very best players to ever play this sport was incredible. And so for him, he had a very strong, solid night, 17 points, 6 rebounds, and the steal.
You talk about Lou Dort. I want to highlight Darius Baisley in that starting 5. He didn't really have it going in the Thunder's game against Golden State, but he flipped the switch in this last game against the Lakers. 20 points, and he had 20 points, 4 steals. That was the big number for me because Darius was kind of all over the floor, and he even had that monstrous block on Anthony Davis. Yes. Yeah. Which Mark Dagnall talked about this. Darius has a really tough night every single night on the defensive end. He's guarding the likes of Anthony Davis. He had Draymond Green against Golden State. And so he has these tough matchups every single night. And he's getting these experiences and he's learning as he's going. But to see that block against AD showed not just that he's, starting to figure things out and how he needs to bring some force and physicality to that position, but also confidence. And I'm not backing down from anyone.
Yeah, you love to see that from Darius because he is such a swing player for this team. He can really provide anything that the team needs on a night-to-night basis. Sometimes it's rebounding. Sometimes it is the defense. Sometimes it's scoring. I mean, the step-back 3 in the left corner was amazing. That really rejuvenated the Thunder and continued the momentum in the second half that they really needed. So when he's knocking down shots, that's big. When he's putting the ball on the deck, when he's efficient as a player like he was, 8 for 14, you're going to see sort of the level of this team rise when Darius plays like that.
Can we also talk about Darius's dunks?
Yeah, big time.
He has 10 of them so far over the Thunder's first 5 games now, and it's been so fun to watch.
I think this is going to be your stat that you track, I track the Lou Dort offensive fouls drawn. But yeah, I mean, Darius, he's finding himself in the right place at the right time. This goes back all the way to his rookie year.
Yep.
He was known in his rookie year for just running the floor, getting to the spot, beating his man to the spot down floor, even if it's just to get into position. And when you develop those habits early in a person's career, they're going to carry forward and pay dividends throughout the course of the career. And so that's why we're seeing him get opportunities out in the fast break, cuts, downhill drives, and he's finishing at a much higher clip.
Add some force and some physicality, and we see him finish those dunks through contact as well, which has been really, really cool to see. Took the words right out of my mouth, Gallo. All right, one other stat to point out from this game is, and we've talked about it a lot, but it's just a really, really telling number. After the Thunder had that 41-19 first quarter, the Lakers outscored them 41-19 in the first quarter. The Thunder outscored LA 104-74 through the remaining 3 quarters. That is a very telling stat of what we've been talking about this entire podcast of a 48-minute game.
That's right. Yeah, 1 quarter, 1 half does not define you.
Yes.
That was another quote that was a contender for you can say that again. That was Josh Getty, and he was echoing Mark Dagnall, which is just because you fell flat in the first quarter or just because you had an amazing first quarter, that doesn't define you. What defines you is the 48 minutes.
Right. And here's the thing, going down the road for the Thunder, this was a great game for them just in terms of seeing how this 48-minute mentality can work in their favor. There are going to be a lot of ups and downs throughout this season, but this is a really good game, a good fallback game to think about just in terms of how this group has been able to compete together and learn that it takes all 5 guys on the floor to come back from a deficit as big as 26. And in order to beat a more experienced team, a more veteran team, a bigger team, you've got to set a tone of physicality and competitiveness and bring it every single minute of the game.
Well, how about this, Paris? This is going to be one of the moments that Thunder fans look back on years from now. I mean, put a little tab on this game because when Shea or some of these young guys that have advanced far in their career, they've come into their own, they're in their late 20s, and they're really playing at a high level. You're going to remember that game against the Lakers when they came back from 26 down? That was a spark. That was when we knew there was something special there. And so to continue to just keep an eye on those moments is really critical.
Definitely a fun game to watch for anybody in that building. It was just electric inside of Paycom Center. And if you want to know more, if you want a little more detail about how that comeback came to be for the Thunder, I'm going to point you to OKCThunder.com. to see Nick Gallo's article, Bucket by Bucket, Possession by Possession. It's out right now. Definitely go take a look at it. But before we let you go, we have to take a look at what's on tap coming up next week for the Thunder. before anything, Halloween is on Sunday.
Yeah, it is.
So we're not going to pod until Halloween is over. So I just want to know, what's Camellia going to be for Halloween?
Keep this a secret, everybody, but I'm pretty sure she's going to just be a strawberry.
Oh my gosh.
It's going to be really cute.
That is the cutest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I can like see it right now, little baby Camellia,
Yeah.
just a little strawberry.
Little hat on top, the little seeds and everything. So
Do you dress
yeah.
Heidi up too? Heidi is Nick's dog.
Heidi doesn't really like stuff on her. One time we put some like little angel wings on
Yeah.
her. That was very
Didn't end
that was
up-
very confusing. She's a skittish dog. There's a reason why she's called Heidi.
Heidi.
She's afraid of everything. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
What about what's going on? Do you have plans? I mean, we're gonna be in LA. I think.
I think I'm just going to eat a lot of candy. I
Okay,
think that is just
nice.
my
Yeah.
excuse to eat as much like gummy worms and Skittles as I possibly can. But I have this shirt, and I'm a huge Office fan, and I have this shirt, and it's Dwight Schrute with the pumpkin head on. So I think I'm just going to wear that.
I thought you were gonna say it's like three hole punch Jim.
Oh,
Or book face or something like that. You know, one of the
Yeah.
classic Office costumes.
you're really just running through kind of my rotation of
Yeah.
Halloween costumes for the next 2 years. So thank you for spilling the tea on all of that.
I got you.
Okay, moving away from Halloween, let's get back to some Thunder action here. Nick Gallo actually just got back from Blue Media Day. The G League season is about to kick off here. Gallo, tell us about that day.
Yeah, it's very similar to the Thunder's Media Day. It's up at the Blue Ion, which is where they practice, where the Thunder practice for the first week of training camp this year. I got to catch up with Grant Gibbs, the head coach. Got to catch up with Paul Watson Jr. and Aaron Wiggins, a few other guys that are going to make that team as well. So be on the lookout for content rolling out on our OKC Blue social channels and on the Thunder website. We're going to keep you posted on that team all season long as well, because with these squads both playing in Paycom Center this year, with the proximity, with the connection of the organization, we're bound to see dividends be paid by players who are going to play for the Blue this season.
And you definitely want to keep an eye out because one thing that Coach Dagnall pointed out, which I just love that he used this term, is the G League team, or the OKC Blue, it's kind of like a cheat code for the Thunder because there's a lot of guys on this Thunder roster who have the opportunity to get minutes on the floor, but obviously there are only 48 minutes in a game. And so being able to utilize the Blue and the G League season as well to get guys reps, get guys minutes, and keep them fresh and get them more opportunities on the floor, it's really good for this young squad.
Yeah, 17 healthy guys. You can really only play 9 or 10 guys full, like normal rotation minutes. So, yeah, you don't be surprised to see a number of different players throughout the season being with the Blue and getting that opportunity to get out there and hone their habits and develop their skills.
Definitely keep an eye out. All right. So for the team, the Thunder itself, they will take 2 days in between games here. They played last night against the Lakers, off day today, and then tomorrow they're setting out for the West Coast where they're going to face the Warriors again on Saturday. That's going to be the second time they play them in a matter of 3 games. That game's coming to you on Saturday, and then from there they're going to be in LA to face the Clippers and the Lakers, and you're going to want to keep your eyes on the OKC Thunder and the Thunder Basketball Universe because we've got a road pod coming to you from LA during that road trip.
It should be a good one. We love podcasting here in our studio, but the road pods are fun too.
A whole lot of fun. We really enjoy them. So keep an eye out for that. But until then, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much to our producer. And until next time, Thunder up and catch you later.